You will always do as I say in this house. You will always obey me, or else you will leave this house.
Mommy, please, I will do it. I always obey you. Please, I'm so tired. Please, I'm begging you. Please, please.
The bucket of dainty water splashed across the marble floor as 8-year-old Mary scrubbed desperately, her small hands raw and trembling. Nana stood over her, arms crossed, a cruel smile twisting her beautiful face as she watched the child work like a servant in what should have been her own home. The billionaire's daughter wore torn, stained clothes that hung loose on her tiny frame, her hair matted and uncombed, her eyes hollow with exhaustion and fear. This was the secret life Mary lived whenever her father Austin traveled for his business trips, a nightmare hidden behind closed doors that no one would ever believe. But today, everything was about to change in the most shocking way possible, and if you think you've heard stories about evil stepmothers before, wait until you hear what happens when this billionaire father discovers the truth about what his new wife has been doing to his precious daughter. Austin had been a successful businessman, a billionaire who owned multiple companies across Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, living the kind of life most Africans only dreamed about with luxury cars, a mansion in Lekki Phase 1, an influence that opened every door in Nigeria's business world. His life had been perfect until 3 years ago when his beloved wife Grace died suddenly from a stroke, leaving him alone with their 6-year-old daughter Mary, a bright, cheerful girl who had been the light of both their lives. The grief had nearly destroyed Austin, and he threw himself into work, traveling constantly between cities, building his empire bigger and bigger because staying busy meant he didn't have to face the emptiness in his home. He barely noticed how quiet Mary had become, how she stopped laughing the way she used to, how she flinched whenever he mentioned leaving for another trip. He told himself she was just grieving her mother, that time would heal her pain, never imagining that the real source of her suffering was living right under his roof, sleeping in his bed, pretending to be the loving stepmother he thought he had married. Nana had entered his life 18 months ago at a business conference in Abuja, a beautiful woman with smooth dark skin, an economics degree from the University of Lagos, and a smile that made him forget his loneliness for the first time since Grace died. She had been attentive, understanding, patient with his grief, and most importantly, she had seemed to adore Mary, spending hours with the little girl, braiding her hair, taking her shopping, making her laugh again in ways Austin hadn't seen since her mother passed. He had fallen for Nana quickly, grateful to find someone who could fill the void in their home, someone who could give Mary the mother figure she desperately needed. They married after 6 months of courtship in a lavish ceremony that was covered by every major newspaper in Lagos, with politicians, business moguls, and celebrities filling the pews of the cathedral. Austin believed he had found happiness again, that he had given his daughter the complete family she deserved, that God had blessed him with a second chance at love. He had no idea he had invited a monster into their home, a woman whose sweet smiles and loving gestures were nothing but an elaborate performance designed to secure her position as the wife of a billionaire. The transformation had happened gradually, so subtle that Mary barely understood what was happening to her life. At first, Nana had been kind even when Austin was away, maintaining the loving stepmother act for a few weeks after the wedding. But slowly, small cruelties began to creep in. A harsh word here, a missed meal there, an unreasonable punishment for minor mistakes. And by the 3rd month, whenever Austin traveled, Nana dropped all pretense completely. She moved Mary out of her beautiful bedroom into a small storage room of the kitchen, took away her nice clothes and replaced them with old rags, stopped the housemaid from cooking for her and made the child prepare her own meals from scraps. Mary became a servant in her own home, waking up at 5 in the morning to clean, cook, wash clothes by hand, scrub floors, polish furniture, all while Nana sat in the living room watching television or talking on the phone with her friends. The worst part was the psychological torture, the constant threats that if Mary ever told her father what was happening, Nana would make sure Austin sent her away to a boarding school where she would never see him again. Or worse, convince him that Mary was a troubled, lying child who needed psychiatric help. Fear had kept Mary silent for months, suffering in silence, becoming a ghost in her own home, losing weight, losing her smile, losing everything that had made her a happy child. She learned to hide the bruises when her father came home, learned to force smiles when he asked if she was okay, learned to praise Nana when Austin praised his new wife for being such a wonderful mother. The staff knew something was wrong. The cook and gardener and driver whispered among themselves about the changes in Mary, but Nana had threatened them too, reminded them that she was now the madam of the house and could have them all fired with a single word to Austin. So everyone stayed silent, trapped in this conspiracy of cruelty, watching an innocent child suffer while a billionaire father remained completely blind to the truth. But today, on this ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Austin's business meeting in Abuja had been cancelled at the last minute, and instead of staying in the capital city for the night as planned, he decided to surprise his family by coming home early. He pulled into the compound at 3 in the afternoon, expecting to find Mary doing homework and Nena relaxing after the day of running the household, never imagining he was about to walk into a scene that would shatter his entire world and expose a woman he married as a cruel monster she truly was. If you're shocked by what you've just heard, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will leave you speechless. This billionaire father is about to discover the truth, and the consequences will be absolutely devastating. Don't miss Chapter 2, where everything comes crashing down. Austin pushed open the front door of his mansion, loosening his tie and calling out cheerfully for his wife and daughter, expecting them to rush out with hugs and excitement at his unexpected return home. The house was strangely quiet except for sounds coming from the kitchen area, muffled voices, and the splash of water, and he walked through the marble foyer still smiling, thinking maybe they were baking something together, maybe preparing a surprise for his scheduled return tomorrow. He rounded the corner into the kitchen hallway, and the scene that met his eyes made his blood run cold, made his heart stop, made his entire understanding of reality crack and shatter like broken glass. There was his daughter, his precious Mary, on her hands and knees scrubbing the floor with a rough brush, her clothes filthy and torn, her body thin and frail, looking more like a street child than the daughter of a billionaire. Standing over her was Nena, his wife, his beloved new wife, her face twisted with cruelty as she berated the child, telling her she was useless, stupid, worthless, words that cut through Austin's chest like physical knives. Time seemed to freeze as Austin stood there in the doorway, his briefcase slipping from his fingers and hitting the floor with a loud thud that made both Nena and Mary jump and turn toward him. The color drained from Nena's face instantly, her mouth falling open in shock and fear, while Mary's eyes went wide with terror, not relief, not joy at seeing her father, but pure fear because she knew what would come next from years of Nena's threats. Austin couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't process what his eyes were showing him because it was so far from the reality he thought he knew, so completely opposite to the life he believed his daughter was living. His mind raced through all the times Mary had been quiet lately, all the weight she had lost that he attributed to growing pains, all the moments she had flinched when he mentioned traveling, all the signs he had missed because he trusted his wife completely. The realization hit him like a physical blow that this had been happening for months right under his nose, that he had been so blind, so stupid, so negligent as a father that his own child had been suffering while he built his business empire and praised the woman who was torturing her. Nena recovered first, her face shifting rapidly as she tried to salvage the situation, stepping away from Mary and forcing a smile that looked grotesque and false now that Austin could see her true face. She started talking quickly, her voice high and nervous, explaining that Mary had insisted on helping with the cleaning, that she was just teaching the girl responsibility and good work ethic, that Austin shouldn't be upset because this was normal parenting and he was overreacting to what he saw. Her words tumbled out in a desperate rush, trying to spin the narrative, trying to manipulate him the way she had been manipulating him for the past 18 months, but her lies sounded hollow now, pathetic and transparent. Austin's eyes moved from his wife to his daughter, really looking at Mary for the first time in months, seeing the bruises on her arms, the fear in her eyes, the way she trembled and looked down at the floor as if waiting for punishment. Something broke inside him in that moment, something fundamental and irreparable, a rage so pure and hot that he thought he might lose control completely and do something he would regret. His voice when he finally spoke was low and deadly, more terrifying than shouting could ever be, each word dropping into the silence like stones into still water. He told Nena to get out of his sight immediately, to go to the bedroom and stay there until he decided what to do with her. And the authority in his voice, the barely contained fury, made his wife scramble backward and rush from the kitchen without another word. Then Austin dropped to his knees beside his daughter, his expensive suit touching the dirty floor he had just found her scrubbing, and he reached out to touch her face with trembling hands. Mary flinched away from him instinctively, and that small movement hurt him more than anything else could have, seeing his own daughter afraid of his touch because she had learned that adults meant pain and cruelty. He started crying then, tears streaming down his face as he pulled her into his arms carefully, whispering apologies over and over, telling her it was over. She was safe. He would never let anyone hurt her again, promises that poured out of him in a flood of guilt and grief. The full story came out slowly over the next hour as Austin held his daughter on the living room couch, wrapped in a clean blanket, drinking hot chocolate that he made himself with shaking hands. Mary was terrified at first, expecting Nana to appear and make good on her threats. But gradually, seeing the rage and pain on her father's face, she began to talk. She told him everything, every detail of her nightmare, how it started small and grew worse, the storage room she slept in, the scraps she ate, the endless cleaning and washing, the threats that kept her silent, the bruises from when she was too slow, made mistakes. Austin listened to every word. His jaw clenched so tight it ached, his hands fisting and unfisting as he fought to control himself, because part of him wanted to storm upstairs and do violence to the woman who had done this to his child. He called his lawyer immediately, his voice shaking with fury as he explained the situation, and demanded divorce papers prepared immediately along with a restraining order. Then he called his personal doctor to come examine Mary, to document every bruise and injury, to make sure she had medical evidence of what had been done to her. By the time evening fell, Austin's mansion had become the center of a storm that would destroy Nana completely and permanently. The doctor had confirmed malnutrition, multiple bruises in various stages of healing, and psychological trauma that would require therapy for months or years. The staff, sensing that the truth was finally out, came forward one by one to tell Austin what they had witnessed, how Nana had threatened them into silence, confirming everything Mary had said, and adding even more horrifying details he hadn't known. Austin's lawyer arrived with preliminary divorce documents and explained that he could pursue criminal charges for child abuse, that Nana could face prison time, that her life as she knew it was over. Upstairs in the bedroom, Nana must have realized the same thing because Austin could hear her pacing, crying, making frantic phone calls to friends and family, but no one was going to save her from the consequences that were coming. The billionaire father sat with his daughter as night fell, holding her close, and he made a decision that would echo through Nigeria's social circles and serve as a warning to anyone who thought they could abuse a child and get away with it. Nana's destruction was just beginning, and what Austin had planned for her would ensure she regretted every moment of cruelty she had inflicted on his innocent daughter. Can you believe what this evil stepmother did? This is just the beginning of her downfall. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell because in Chapter 3, you'll see exactly how a billionaire father takes revenge on the woman who tortured his child. The next chapter will show you that karma is real, and sometimes it comes wearing expensive suits and wielding unlimited power. Don't go anywhere. The next morning, Austin woke early after a sleepless night spent in Mary's new bedroom, the one he had immediately moved her back into, sitting in a chair by her bed and watching her sleep fitfully, her small body twitching with nightmares that made him want to weep. He had made calls throughout the night to business associates, friends in high places, people who owed him favors, and by dawn, he had set in motion a plan that would strip Nana of everything she thought she had gained by marrying him. She had married him for money, for status, for access to the lifestyle of Nigeria's elite, and he was going to take all of it away piece by piece until she had nothing left but the bitter taste of her own cruelty. His first call was to his bank, instructing them to freeze all accounts that Nana had access to, canceling her credit cards, removing her name from everything financial. Then he called his publicist and told her to prepare a statement, because he was going to do something that wealthy men rarely did in Nigeria. He was going to publicly expose his wife's abuse and explain exactly why he was divorcing her. Nana came downstairs around 9 in the morning, her eyes red from crying, her face haggard, still believing somehow that she could talk her way out of this situation if she could just get Austin alone and explain. She found him in his study, sitting behind his massive desk, looking at her with eyes so cold and empty that she actually stepped back in fear. She started talking immediately, her voice desperate and pleading, telling him that Mary was lying, that she had been nothing but a loving mother, that he was believing the manipulations of a disturbed child over his own wife. Austin let her talk for exactly 30 seconds before he picked up the remote control and turned on the television mounted on his wall, showing her the CCTV footage he had reviewed from his home security system. He had cameras throughout the house except in bedrooms and bathrooms, and the footage showed everything, weeks and weeks of abuse captured in silent video. Nana's face went white as she watched herself on screen hitting Mary, forcing the child to scrub floors, throwing food at her, images that would destroy any defense she tried to mount. The legal proceedings moved with a speed that only money and influence could accomplish in Nigeria, Austin's team of lawyers filing for immediate divorce on grounds of child abuse, seeking full custody of Mary, which was automatic anyway, and pursuing criminal charges that could send Nena to prison. Within 48 hours, she was served with divorce papers, a restraining order keeping her away from both Austin and Mary, and a criminal complaint filed with the Lagos State Police Command. But Austin wasn't satisfied with just legal consequences because he knew how slowly justice moved in Nigeria, how people with connections could make charges disappear, how abusers often escaped real punishment. He wanted Nena's social destruction to be so complete, so public, so devastating that she would never recover from it, that her name would become synonymous with cruelty and child abuse throughout Nigeria's upper class. So he did something that shocked everyone. He held a press conference at his company headquarters with Mary by his side, and he told the entire story to every major media outlet in the country. The press conference was broadcast live on 3 different television channels and streamed online to millions of viewers across Africa, Austin standing at a podium with microphones pointed at him from every direction, his daughter holding his hand and looking small and vulnerable in her new dress. He didn't hold back any details, showing the CCTV footage to the cameras, displaying medical reports documenting Mary's injuries, reading statements from his household staff confirming the abuse. He explained how Nena had manipulated him, how she had put on an elaborate act to secure her position as his wife, how she had tortured his daughter the moment his back was turned. The footage went viral within hours, spreading across social media platforms, trending on Twitter Nigeria, shared millions of times on Facebook and WhatsApp, sparking outrage and disgust from people across the country. Nena's face became the face of evil stepmothers everywhere, her name dragged through the mud by celebrities, politicians, ordinary Nigerians, everyone condemning her actions and praising Austin for his courage in speaking out publicly. The social consequences were immediate and brutal, more effective than any legal punishment could have been in destroying Nena's life completely. Her family disowned her publicly, releasing statements saying they were ashamed of her actions and supported Austin's decision to prosecute her. Her friend abandoned her overnight, deleting photos with her from social media, refusing to answer her calls, treating her like a pariah who could contaminate them by association. The exclusive club she had joined as Austin's wife revoked her memberships. The charity organization she had been involved with removed her from their boards. The society event she loved attending banned her from their guest lists. Every door that had opened for her as a billionaire's wife slammed shut in her face, and she found herself completely alone, living in a small apartment her brother reluctantly rented for her, surviving on the little money she had saved before Austin froze her accounts. She couldn't show her face anywhere in Lagos without people recognizing her and shouting insults, couldn't go shopping without store workers refusing to serve her, couldn't attend church without the congregation staring and whispering until she fled in tears. But Austin wasn't finished with her yet, because public disgrace wasn't enough punishment for what she had done to Mary, and he had one final blow planned that would ensure Nena understood the full consequences of her cruelty. He had his lawyers file a civil lawsuit against her for emotional damages to Mary, seeking compensation of 500 million naira, an amount she could never possibly pay, ensuring that she would be in debt for the rest of her life. More importantly, he used his business connections to make sure she could never find decent employment anywhere in Nigeria, blacklisting her from every company, every organization, every opportunity that could give her a fresh start. He wanted her to live with the consequences of her actions every single day, to wake up every morning and remember what she had lost, to understand that cruelty is a price and she was paying it in full. As he sat in his living room that evening watching news coverage of his press conference, with Mary finally sleeping peacefully in her own bed upstairs, Austin felt a grim satisfaction that justice was being served. But even as Nena's world crumbled around her, there was one more twist coming that no one expected. A revelation that would add even more layers to this tragic story and prove that sometimes the past is a way of catching up with everyone involved. This billionaire father just destroyed his ex-wife's entire life in less than a week, but you won't believe what gets revealed next. Smash that like button if you think Nena got exactly what she deserved, and don't miss chapter 4 where we discover why she became so cruel, and what happens when Mary starts a healing journey. The story is about to take an unexpected turn that will make you see everything differently. 3 weeks after the press conference that destroyed Nena's life, Austin sat in a child psychologist's office in Victoria Island, watching through a one-way mirror as Mary played with dolls in the therapy room, finally beginning to talk about her trauma with a professional. The healing process was slow and painful, filled with setbacks and breakthroughs, and Austin attended every single session, determined never to miss another important moment in his daughter's life. He had cut back his business travels dramatically, promoting trusted executives to handle affairs in other cities, restructuring his company so he could be home every evening to tuck Mary into bed and promise her she was safe. The mansion felt different now, lighter somehow, with new staff who were carefully vetted and trained, with laughter slowly returning to rooms that had been filled with fear. Mary was gaining weight, smiling more often, sleeping without nightmares, and though the road ahead was long, Austin could see his daughter coming back to life bit by bit, day by day, and that gave him hope that they could move past this nightmare together. During one of these therapy sessions, Austin's phone rang with a call from his lawyer, and the news he received added an unexpected complication to the situation that made him question everything he thought he knew about Nena's motivations. His legal team had been investigating Nena's background thoroughly as part of the criminal case, and they had discovered information that painted a more complex picture than the simple story of a gold digger who married for money. Nena herself had grown up in an abusive home in Enugu State, her own mother treating her as a servant while favoring her younger siblings, beating her for minor mistakes, starving her as punishment, creating the same cycle of cruelty that Nena had inflicted on Mary. She had escaped that life by excelling in school, earning a scholarship to university, clawing her way up from poverty through intelligence and determination. But the abuse had broken something inside her, had taught her that love was conditional, that weakness invited punishment, that children were burdens to be controlled rather than treasures to be cherished. Austin sat in his car after receiving this information, his hands gripping the steering wheel, feeling a complicated mix of emotions that he didn't want to feel because it was easier to see Nena as pure evil than to understand that she was also a victim who had become an abuser. It didn't excuse what she had done to Mary. Nothing could ever excuse that, but it explained it in a way that made the tragedy even deeper and more painful. He thought about the cycle of abuse, how hurt people, how trauma gets passed down through generations like a curse until someone has the courage to break it. Nena had never broken that cycle, had instead perpetuated it, becoming the same monster her mother had been, and now she was paying the price for that failure. Austin realized that his revenge, as justified as it had been, as necessary as it felt, had also continued the cycle in its own way, destroying Nena as completely as her mother had tried to destroy her spirit all those years ago. This revelation led Austin to make a decision that shocked everyone who knew about the case, that confused his lawyers and made some of his friends question his sanity, but that felt right to him in a way he couldn't fully explain. He decided to drop the civil lawsuit seeking 500 million naira from Nena, the lawsuit that would have bankrupted her forever and kept her in debt until she died. He didn't drop the criminal charges because those were necessary for justice and for protecting other potential victims, but he decided he didn't want Nena's financial destruction on his conscience anymore. He instructed his lawyers to offer her a settlement, a small monthly payment that would allow her to survive with dignity, enough money to get therapy herself, to begin her own healing process, to maybe one day understand what she had done and find some kind of redemption. His friends thought he was being weak, that he should crush her completely, but Austin explained that he wasn't doing this for Nena. He was doing it for Mary, because he wanted his daughter to grow up seeing that mercy was possible even after terrible hurt, that breaking cycles of abuse meant choosing compassion over vengeance were never possible. The settlement offer went through Nena's lawyer to avoid any direct contact due to the restraining order, and for days there was no response, and Austin assumed she would reject it out of pride or anger or stubbornness. But then he received a letter, handwritten on simple paper, delivered through her attorney, and when he read it, he felt tears in his eyes for the first time since the day he discovered the truth. Nena's letter was raw and honest, filled with genuine remorse that seemed to come from somewhere deep and broken inside her. She wrote that she had spent 3 weeks in her apartment reliving every moment of cruelty she had inflicted on Mary, seeing herself clearly for the first time, recognizing her mother's face in her own actions, and hating herself for becoming exactly what she had once feared and escaped. She wrote that she accepted full responsibility, that she knew she deserved every consequence, that she didn't expect or want forgiveness but needed Austin to know that she was truly, genuinely sorry for the pain she had caused his innocent daughter. She accepted the settlement not because she wanted his money but because she wanted to use it exactly as he suggested, to get therapy, to understand herself, to make sure she never hurt another child again. The letter ended with Nena explaining that she had decided to leave Lagos permanently after the criminal trial, that she would return to Enugu and work with organizations that helped abused children, that she would dedicate whatever life she had left to breaking the cycle she had perpetuated, to making sure other children didn't suffer the way she had made Mary suffer. Austin sat with that letter for a long time, feeling something shift inside him, not forgiveness exactly, because what she had done to Mary was unforgivable, but perhaps understanding, perhaps closure, perhaps the beginning of his own healing from the rage that had consumed him. He showed the letter to Mary's therapist, who said it might be useful in Mary's recovery to know that Nena acknowledged the abuse and took responsibility, that it wasn't Mary's fault, that even adults who do terrible things are complex human beings with their own pain and damage. That evening, Austin sat with Mary on the couch, watching her favorite cartoon, and he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks, a sense of peace, as if the storm that had raged through their lives was finally beginning to calm, leaving them battered but alive, damaged but healing, ready to move forward into whatever future they could build together. You probably didn't expect that twist, did you? This story is about more than just revenge. It's about breaking cycles and finding healing even in the darkest situations. If you're still watching, drop a comment telling me what you think about Austin's decision to show mercy. And don't miss the final chapter where we see where everyone ends up, and whether true healing is really possible after such deep betrayal. Chapter 5 is coming next, and I promise you will want to see how this emotional journey ends. 6 months later, the Lagos courtroom was packed with journalists, curious onlookers, and child welfare advocates as Nena stood before the judge to receive sentencing for child abuse charges. She looked different from the glamorous woman who had once walked the red carpets of Lagos society events, thinner, older, wearing a simple dress and no makeup, her eyes downcast with genuine shame. The prosecution had argued for maximum penalty, presenting the CCTV footage, medical reports, and testimony from household staff that painted a devastating picture of sustained cruelty. Nena's defense attorney, paid for by the settlement money Austin had provided, didn't try to deny the charges but instead presented evidence of her own childhood abuse and the therapy she had been attending religiously for months, arguing for rehabilitation rather than pure punishment. The judge, a stern woman known for her harsh sentences in child abuse cases, listened to everything before delivering a verdict that surprised everyone in the courtroom and made headlines across Nigeria. Nena was sentenced to 3 years in prison, suspended to 18 months with strict probation conditions that included continued therapy, community service at children's homes, and permanent prohibition from working in any capacity involving childcare. The judge explained that while the crimes were serious and deserved punishment, she believed in the possibility of redemption for those who showed genuine remorse and willingness to change. Nena would serve her time, but she would also have the opportunity to become someone different, to use her experience to help others, to break the cycle that had defined her life. As the guards led her away to begin her sentence, Nena looked back at Austin, who sat in the gallery with Mary, and their eyes met for just a moment. There was no forgiveness in that look, no reconciliation, but there was acknowledgement, understanding, closure. Then she was gone, and Austin felt a chapter of their lives finally ending, making room for the new beginning they desperately needed. Mary's transformation over those 6 months had been nothing short of miraculous, a testament to childhood resilience and the healing power of genuine love and safety. She had gained back the weight she had lost and more, her face round and healthy again, her eyes bright with the spark of curiosity that had been beaten out of her during those terrible months. She had returned to school, where Austin had explained the situation to her teachers and counselors, ensuring she had support from every direction. Her grades improved dramatically as she no longer lived in constant fear, and she made new friends who knew nothing about her past trauma, who just saw her as a sweet, funny girl who loved to draw and read stories. The nightmares became less frequent, the flinching stopped, the fear gradually melted away as week after week passed with nothing but safety, love, and stability. She still attended therapy sessions, still had hard days when the memories came back strong, but she was learning to process her trauma in healthy ways, to understand that what happened to her wasn't her fault, that she deserved love and kindness and protection. Austin had transformed too, becoming a different kind of father, and a different kind of businessman who understood that money and success meant nothing if you failed the people who depended on you. He restructured his life completely, selling off some of his companies to consolidate his business interests in Lagos, hiring a management team he could trust so he didn't have to travel constantly, making Mary his absolute priority in every decision he made. He volunteered his time and money to children's charities, becoming an advocate for child abuse awareness and prevention, using his platform as a wealthy businessman to speak out about protecting vulnerable children. He funded a new shelter for abused children in Lagos, equipped with counselors and medical facilities, a place where kids like Mary could find safety and healing. His friends noticed a change in him, how he talked less about profits and more about purpose, how he seemed calmer, more present, more focused on what really mattered in life. The public response to Austin's story had been overwhelmingly positive, with many people praising his courage in speaking out about the abuse despite the embarrassment and scandal it brought to his family. He received thousands of messages from parents sharing their own stories, from abuse survivors thanking him for giving them courage to speak up, from child welfare organizations asking for his support and partnership. What could have been a shameful secret became a powerful tool for change, sparking conversations across Nigeria about protecting children from abuse even when it happened in wealthy homes, even when the abuser was a respected member of society. The press conference that destroyed Nena's reputation had also created a legacy of awareness and advocacy that would protect countless other children. Austin realized that Mary's suffering, as horrible as it had been, might serve a purpose in making sure other children were saved from similar fates. As the sun set over Lagos on the evening of the sentencing, Austin and Mary sat on their balcony overlooking the ocean, sharing a plate of puff-puff that they had made together in the kitchen, laughing as they remembered how badly the first batch had turned out before they got it right. Mary leaned against her father's side, feeling safe and loved in a way she had feared she might never feel again during those dark months of abuse. Austin wrapped his arm around his daughter, feeling grateful beyond words that he had come home that day, that he had discovered the truth in time, that they had both survived this nightmare and come out strong on the other side. They talked about the future, about the trip to Disney World Austin had planned for Mary's 9th birthday in 2 months, about the puppy they would adopt next weekend, about all the normal, happy things that fill their lives now. In the distance, somewhere across the city, Nena was beginning her prison sentence, living with the consequences of her cruelty, but hopefully also beginning her own journey of healing and redemption. The cycle of abuse had been broken, not perfectly, not easily, but decisively, and that was enough. As father and daughter watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, they both understood something profound and simple, that love was stronger than hate, that healing was possible after horror, and that sometimes the most important thing you could do in life was simply be present for people who needed you most, protecting them, cherishing them, showing them every single day that they matter more than anything else in the world. And that's how this incredible story ends, not with perfect revenge, but with healing, growth, and the breaking of generational trauma. If this story moved you, if it made you think about protecting the vulnerable children in your own community, then hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me what you learned from Austin and Mary's journey, and don't forget to check out the other powerful stories on this channel. Remember, child abuse can happen anywhere, in any family, at any economic level. Stay vigilant. Speak up. Protect the children around you. Thank you for watching until the end, and I'll see you in the next story.